Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of the Total Innovation Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Simon Hill. As everyone knows who listens to this podcast, we're joined by a mix of different voices from across the innovation ecosystem on a global basis. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by a long-term friend and someone who is a change maker in a variety of different ways around the world. Ian Small, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Simon. It's great to be here today.
In putting this together, you and I had a number of different conversations about which of the many hats in this innovation world that you might want to wear, and Ian will come back and talk about at least one of those other hats in a future episode. But Ian's currently leading a personal change maker initiative. Maybe it's a startup, maybe it's a venture, maybe it's not, none of those things, right? But it's certainly the start of an innovation journey that some may argue started some decades ago from a background perspective, and it is as the convener, I guess, is how you want me to describe it. And we were looking for the right word to pick on all of this, of a loose collection of change makers in the water space under a new movement, a new alliance called the Water Innovators Alliance. So as a disruptor and a change maker, welcome to the podcast. And we like innovators, we like disruptors in particular here, right? There's a mix of voices. But why don't you start, Ian, by giving us a little bit of background to the Water Innovators Alliance? Like, what is it and where did it come from? And by the way, for people listening, this is the first time that either of us have done a podcast both together in person in the same room. So let's see how this one goes.
Thank you, Simon. So the Water Innovator Alliance has been running for about 7 months. I started it in response to a number of challenges that the water sector and innovators in that space particularly face. And I'd been speaking to various startups about how we could move things forward, how we could access and drive and scale innovations. And one of the big challenges is that they have very small voices independently. Trying to get traction with the regulator, with the water companies, with potential partners is very difficult. And so me and a few other like-minded startups and founders, and we're very much in startup mode in the Innovator Alliance, is let's all come together. Let's start sharing some of our challenges, some of our opportunities, and let's see what we can do and how big and how fast we can grow all together. And so, yeah, we're growing rapidly. Lots of new members joining, and it's an exciting time in the water space.
So let's take a step back, and thank you for that context. We'll dig into it a little bit more as we evolve the discussion. Innovation in the water sector, like, for lots of people, may not be really familiar with what innovation might even look like in the water sector. So let's wind us back, because you fell into this weird and wonderful world of water, I guess, from a degree level, right? You studied geography and landed yourself a job. And let's talk a little bit about that journey from your perspective, and what does innovation mean in the water sector?
I've got 20 years all told in the water sector. And I've got a geography degree. I was worried about the environment from way back then, mostly interested in rivers and how rivers flowed. And then I got a job worrying about how water flows down sewer pipes. Who knew? Didn't even know it was a career choice. And 20 years later, I'm still interested in it, and it's still a hot topic in the media at the moment. And I've always been interested in. Well, my career started with how to solve problems that water companies faced with their wastewater networks, and I've always been interested in how we can more effectively solve those problems, and innovation is a key part of solving those problems. And while the water sector is not perceived as a particularly innovative sector, it has delivered lots of innovations and changed lots over its lifetime, and continues to do so today, and is one of those sectors where it is incrementally changing all of the time. It doesn't go through massive transformational changes as new technology drives it forward. It's fundamentally driven by the chemistry and the constraints of gravity that place on the system, and therefore we're always looking for ways to do things more efficiently, and that's what interests me, is how we can accelerate that drive to be more efficient.
And to sort of couch this, because I think there's a lot of innovation that can happen in the more consumer-focused water space. I'm often perplexed by the fact that as a nation, we may find water remarkably uninnovative and uninteresting, but we're more happy to pay more for a bottle of water at a gas station than we are for the liter of fuel we just put in our car. But we're talking really about the turning on of a tap and having fresh water come out of it, the ability to remove dirty water and clean it and put it through an environmental cycle, et cetera, predominantly here. Right?
Exactly, yeah. And the fact that for 99% of the time and 99% of customers don't have to worry about it in the UK. We're very, very lucky in this country and for most of the developed world that we can take it for granted as customers that the water comes out and you flush the toilet and it disappears. But lots of people work very hard to make that happen. It's a very large and complex industry behind the scenes that just doesn't get recognised for most of the time until it goes wrong, and then people are up in arms.
So there's lots of places that people can choose to innovate, and I think this is one of those. I kind of don't want to call it a niche because it's huge, right? But it sort of is a niche from a focus perspective, at least. That the more you peel it back, it is. There may be a lot of water-based puns in this episode, I apologize, but it's less of a dry topic than it feels like it could otherwise have been. And there's a lot of room for innovation. And even as you said, if you pick up the newspapers or search the internet on the topic, there's a lot of problem areas, right?
Yeah.
And I suspect therefore there's a lot of solution areas. So where's the innovation rub in this? Like what are the challenges that are faced, and where does the Water Innovator Alliance come into that? So
there are challenges all over the water cycle. In some parts we don't have enough water. In some places, and at some times of year, we have too much water. There's fundamental challenges there. Then there are challenges around pollution and pollutants in the water system. So PFAS, the forever chemicals, is an emerging problem. We've got microplastics is another problem that we're trying to deal with, and then there's trying to make people more efficient, stop pipes leaking so much, dealing with overflows and pollution. Then the wider sector sort of infrastructure challenges around decarbonisation and crop biodiversity challenges that are all linked within the water sector and all need to be looked at as a system. And so the Water Innovator Alliance has got organisations that are looking at all kinds of components of that, whether that's physical processes or data analysis, or how do you bring AI tools to help make things more efficient. There's a whole range of different organisations within the Alliance.
And how would you best summarise the goals then of the Alliance?
So the Alliance is there to help its members to accelerate and achieve the value that their innovations have the potential to achieve, by helping them to bring them to market and to scale as efficiently, as quickly as possible.
And that's a voice that they otherwise don't really have in the industry right now.
Yeah. So we created the Alliance because there was no sectoral voice that was dedicated to innovators and founders in the space. There are a multitude of organisations that are all aiming to help the water sector to solve various problems, but none of them are focused on innovators specifically. So that's why we came about.
Do you think that there's something unique about, or at least if not unique, like fairly unique about the water sector that means that it's different than other sectors in terms of its innovation challenge? I mean, you mentioned one example, which is the water is where the water is, right? Yeah. And I guess it isn't where it isn't on the other side of it, and when it is and when it isn't. But there are other parallels in other sectors that have similar challenges to that. So something specific, do you think, to the water sector that make it harder to drive innovation through, or harder to get real scaled impact? And I asked that question. I was talking to someone who, similar to you, was kind of accidentally built their career in the in the water sector. And one of the things that stuck with me from that conversation was, a number of the issues were the issues when I came into this sector 30 years ago, right? PFAS was an issue, and it's still an issue now, and leakage was an issue, and it's still an issue now. Now we've got incrementally better and better and better, I think. And even the data, I think, suggests that, even though if you read the newspapers, you wouldn't believe it to be true. And that there are a number of things we just take for granted now that, yeah, we all should hold ourselves to higher account. So is there an innovation problem? Is it one that we could make significant leaps with doing things better? Is kind of a big pointy question of all of this, and why does it move so slowly as a sector, do you think?
So there are lots of problems, there are lots of opportunities, and bringing those two together is part of the challenge. And then the next part of the challenge is how to get them used as effectively and efficiently as possible within the rules that the water companies in this country have to work within. And those rules are often set by the regulator. And we have this 5-year regulatory cycle where customer bills are set and investment plans are set. And therefore, you have to time your innovation delivery with the cycle that the water companies and the regulator are working to. Otherwise, you may have to wait another 5 years before your innovation can be implemented. And so, yeah, there's that regulatory challenge, and then there's things about understanding the risk and people's perceived acceptance of risk. There's lots of perception, and somebody else is driving a challenge rather than it being a real risk or a real issue. And then there's breaking through the incumbent. There's a very strong water sector. There's a very strong supply chain that has always delivered. There are a number of recognized players in the market, and trying to be a new player in that market is very hard to break into.
Interesting. And I suspect that does resonate across sectors, but it's quite pronounced, I guess, particularly in a water sector where you can name all the actors in it, probably, in not too long a list either, right? And they've been there for quite a long time. So if we look really then at sort of the Water Innovators Alliance, and we look at, we've started this venture, you've got people coming, and everyone seems to be really, really interested in the opportunity space that's there. Like, how would you categorize that for anyone that might be interested in getting involved? What does that opportunity space look like, and what does the future look like from a Water Innovators Alliance perspective?
So it's free to join. We are in a growth phase at the moment. We want more voices to help us understand what the challenges are, and to allow us to bring more solutions to more water companies. We are actively looking at how we can help our members at the moment and work out what the most effective way of doing that is. So we're looking at what events should we be running events? Should we be proactively reaching out to water companies with specific solutions? Should we be trying all kinds of different ways? We're trying to work out what the most effective routes are, and we're not wedded to any platform or solution or way of working. We're looking for opportunities. So but the more people we have, and the more members, then the more things we can do, then the more opportunity there is to help people make the leap to getting their solutions to scale.
And people with any sorts of solutions pertinent to the water industry, or are there specific areas that you think there's real money there, or there's real appetite to actually do something within the water sector?
So the water sector at the moment is open to lots of new ideas. So that I don't think there are if you've got a solution that's around how to build assets faster, or you've got a solution that's around stopping leakage or analyzing data, there are opportunities in all of these spaces. There's obviously the ones that are at the front of the mind in the media at the moment, but the water sector does so many things that there are. If you've got something that is remotely water related, there is an opportunity within the water sector at the moment.
You close your eyes, and I know we're very much in experimentation and market listening mode from sort of lean startup type thinking of this thing, but what does this look like in 12 months' time, do you think?
It's an exciting opportunity in 12 months' time. I think we'll be much stronger as an organisation. The links that we'll have made between the startups, allowing them to access the value by partnering with other startups, I think is probably where we'll see the most value generated. So where you've got complementary solutions within startups, then coming together and then being able to provide a bigger and better offering to the market, I think will be where we'll see the biggest growth and the most success from the alliance. And I'm pretty sure you'll see that we'll be much more professional as an outfit in 12 months' time, with websites and events running regularly that will be useful to startups and incumbents as well.
And for now, then, if people want to get involved or learn more, the best place to go?
The best place to go is LinkedIn, and look up the Water Innovators Alliance LinkedIn page. There's all the information you need there. There's the form and how to join, or reach out to me on through the socials, and we'd be more than happy to welcome you.
Absolutely. And I think, look, the best innovations start at these points of inflection, right? There's a real need. I know from your perspective, this came out of a number of different blogs and points of research, and getting really frustrated at the stuff happening, but it's not quite having the impact yet that we think it should. And so, finally, I think you just threw your pen down and said, fine, if it's not going to happen, I'm going to start this thing and see what happens, right?
Exactly. Yeah. There's only so long you can sit there and accept the same old things, watching the same thing happen over and over again to innovations and trials and projects, and yeah, that's driven me to frustration, and this is how I've unleashed that frustration on the sector, and hopefully I'm helping everybody to achieve more by convening this group.
Well, congrats on taking a step forward, and thank you for coming and sharing that story with us today. I would encourage anybody who's interested in just understanding more about the water sector globally. I think if we step back and think about it, water is the most precious commodity we have on planet Earth. People that follow Wazoku closely will know that we've done a lot of different innovation calls and challenges around the number of the different topic areas that Ian has referenced today. And water scarcity, water cleanliness is going to be the thing that really defines our species, I think, moving forward. And so it's super important. It is a lot more than it seems on the surface. It goes deeper. I'm going to try no more water puns. I apologize. And thank you, Ian. I like getting disruptors on here. I like getting people that are prepared to challenge what here is quite a difficult, diggy problem to get into, right? It's a sector that really doesn't want to really change. And as I've said, these problems have kind of been pervasive for quite a long time and probably will be for some time to come. So I'm excited to be on this adventure with you. And anyone else that wants to get involved, please, come and find Ian, come have a conversation and get in touch with the Water Innovators Alliance. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, Simon. It's been great fun.
My pleasure. As always, thank you for listening. We take your feedback. If there are requests of guests or if you'd like to come on the podcast, please feel free to reach out. We're booking through the end of the year at this point in time. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. Please hit subscribe and give us the feedback if you have. Once again, thank you very much for listening.